again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes and arachnids. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of knitting. This gem is the Lacy Mock Cables Stitch. Really easy and, well, they call it a mock cable stitch because unlike most cable stitches where you need a cable needle, this one you don't. Really, really quite simple. All you need is your knitting needles. I'm using circulars, although you could use straight needles for this, no problem. And, if I didn't say before, it's only a 4-row repeat. I love this. And so for this particular swatch that I knitted up, I used Lion Brand Pound of Love, colorway of Thistle, and the needles that I am using, these are my Chiaogus. I love them so. These are size 9, which is a 5.5 millimeter. You can, of course, use whatever works best for you. And I'm going to give you the multiple, so you can make this as wide or as narrow as you want to, whether it is a scarf, a wrap, a blanket. Go crazy. Well, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? All right, so first things first, of course, is the cast on. And for this particular stitch, you're going to need a total of, well, a multiple, excusez-moi, a multiple of 4 stitches plus an additional 2 stitches. So, as I said before, you can make this as wide or as narrow as you want to, but I always suggest do a swatch first. That way you can determine, how many multiples of 4 you would need for the width that you're going for. So I'm going to do a couple of knitted cast on stitches for you. Just going into that first cast on loop that we did. And then wrap the yarn around. Pull that loop up. And with your left needle, go around and in and pull. So now I've got 2. Going in again, as if to knit, around, pull up a loop, with the left going through, and pull. And so I think I'm going to do maybe 3 or 4 multiples of 4, and I'm going to do the rest of my cast on stitches off camera, but I wanted to do a couple for you on camera. Also, I will put in the description box down below a link where I have a tutorial specifically on the knitted cast on, which is, to present day, it is my favorite cast on because it creates a really nice sort of stretchy cast on. So like I said, a multiple of 4 plus an additional 2, and we shall get started. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so row 1, I went ahead and I finished the rest of my cast on stitches. I decided on 3 multiples of 4, so I've got 12. Then I added my additional 2, so I've got 14 right here. And even though the stitches themselves are really quite simple, the first row, I don't know about you, but the first row for me is always the most fiddly. So we're going to do basically a back and forth binary of purl 2, knit 2 all the way across. And that additional 2 stitches that we added, that ensures that we end up with a purling of 2. So going right in with 2 purls. And then yarn to the back and knit 2. And then yarn to the front and purl 2. And to the back knit 2, to the front, purl 2, to the back, knit 2, to the front, and purl the last 2 stitches. And there you go. So that is the first row. Now the next 4 rows are going to be the repeat for the rest of this pattern. So let's hop to it, shall we? Okay, row 2. Now row 2 is going to seem a little bit counterintuitive for those of you that are familiar with knitting, because we're going to be doing some increases, but we're not going to be doing any decreases. That is to say, not yet. Typically, whenever you do increases, you need the same number of decreases so that your fabric doesn't keep growing exponentially. This will make more sense as we go on. I just wanted to, give a little, disclaimer right up front. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be knitting the knits and purling the purls. However, we are going to be also incorporating yarn overs, and that creates that really nice little eyelet in the cables. So let's hop right in and knit the first 2 stitches. Then yarn to the front. So we're going to do a purl, yarn over, purl. So going in to purl. And the yarn is already at the front here. Basically just bring it around the back and to the front again, creating a loop. And that's going to be that eyelet. So we did our yarn over, then purl the next stitch. There we go. Then yarn to the back, knit the next 2 stitches. Yarn to the front, purl, yarn over, purl. So purl, and the yarn over, bringing it around into the front again, and then purl the next stitch. Yarn to the back, knit the next 2. Yarn to the front, purl, yarn over, and purl, yarn to the back, and knit the last 2 stitches. And there you go. So that is row 2. So we originally had, it was what, 14 stitches? Now we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. Well, don't worry. We shall accommodate for that later. But right now, let's keep going on to row 3. Okay, row 3 and row 4, it's basically just a matter of stitching the stitches as they are presented to us. So, going to purl the purls and knit the knits, and this yarn over, we're going to treat that as a knit stitch. So, going to scoot right in and purl the first 2 stitches. Purl and purl. And then yarn to the back, knit the next 3, again treating that yarn over as a knit stitch. So knit these next 3. It's 1, 2, and 3. Yarn to the front, purl the next 2. There we go. Yarn to the back, knit the next 3. Yarn to the front, purl 2. Yarn to the back, knit 3. Yarn to the front, and purl the last 2. And there you go. All right. Okay, row 4, like I said before, going to knit the knits and purl the purls. So it's knit 2, purl 3, knit 2, purl 3 all the way across. Very straightforward and simple. So knit these first 2. And then yarn to the front, purl the next 3. Yarn to the back, knit 2. Yarn to the front, purl 3. There we go. Yarn to the back, knit 2. Yarn to the front, purl 3. Yarn to the back, and knit those last 2 stitches. And there you go. One more row to go. Okay, row 5 is the last row. And for row 5, we're going to be sort of undoing the increase that we did previously before it was, what, row 2? And so basically these 3 knit stitches, we are going to do a decrease. It's a little bit fiddly initially, but you get used to it. So the purl stitches are going to be purls, the knit stitches are going to be knits, but we are going to introduce a decrease. We will get there, don't worry. So going to purl the first 2 stitches as normal. Purl and purl. Yarn to the back, knit the next 3 stitches as normal. 1, 2, and 3. Now, the decrease and the sort of mock cable aspect, that first of the knit stitches, we're going to pass that over these other 2 second knit stitches up, over, and off the right-hand needle. So going in, grabbing that first knit stitch, and you want to be careful that you don't end up dropping these other 2 knit stitches. You want to be careful, but at the same time, be brave. We can do this. So making sure that we don't lose those other 2 knit stitches up, over, and off, and it creates that sort of twist look of the cables. So then after we do that, yarn to the front, purl the next 2, yarn to the back, knit the next 3, and then decrease again. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, then going into that first knit stitch that we did, and pull it up, over, and off the needle. And yes, it can be, like I said, a little bit fiddly, especially if you're filming the process, but it is possible. Okay, then yarn to the front, purl the next 2, yarn to the back, knit the next 3, okay, and grab that first knit stitch and up, over, and off the right-hand needle, yarn to the front, and purl the last 2 stitches. And it is at this point that we have the original stitch count that we started with. We have gained equilibrium. Yep. And so every time you do a repeat, you end up increasing, doing 2 rows of stitch per stitch, and then a decrease. So you do have ultimately that equilibrium. Now, what I would recommend is, after you're, working up your piece, you would, after doing this row 5 and you have maintained equilibrium as far as the number of stitches in your width, then the following row would be your bind off or cast off, for your project. That would be my personal recommend. At any rate, because I like being thorough, let's do a repeat of rows 2, 3, 4, and 5 together because, well, I like being comprehensive. So let's do it to it, shall we? Okay, so row 2 for the repeat, it's our increase row where we're introducing new eyelets, and that is in between the purl stitches. So going to knit the first 2, knit, and knit, then yarn to the front, purl, yarn over, purl. So purl the first one. There we are. And then for the yarn over, bring it around the needle and to the front. Okay. Now, when I was first doing this, I'm like, how do I do this? So I'm like, do I bring it around the back and then to the front again? That won't quite work, at least not in my experience. So if you bring it around the back and to the front again, that works out beautifully. So yarn to the front, doing that yarn over, and then purl the next stitch. There we are. Then yarn to the back, knit the next two, yarn to the front, and purl. Yarn over and purl. Yarn to the back, knit two, yarn to the front, purl, and yarn over and purl. Yarn to the back, and then knit the last two. Okay, next two rows are easy peasy. So let's get to them, shall we? Okay, welcome to Easy Street, because rows 3 and 4, we're just stitching the stitches as we see them. So it is going to be purling the purls and knitting the knits. So start off by purling the first two. There we are. And then yarn to the back, knit the next three. And again, that yarn over counts as a knit stitch. So knit three. Yarn to the front, purl two. Yarn to the back, knit three. Yarn to the front, purl two. Yarn to the back, knit three. Yarn to the front, and purl those last two stitches. And there you go. Ta-da! You can already see the gorgeousness that we're creating. I love it. All right, let's keep going with row 4. Okay, row 4, as I said before, it is just a matter of knitting the knits and purling the purls. So let's get right into there with knitting the first 2 stitches and proceeding along and stitching them as we see them. So knit 2, yarn to the front, purl 3, yarn to the back, knit 2, yarn to the front, purl 3, yarn to the back, knit 2, yarn to the front, purl 3, yarn to the back, and knit those last 2 stitches. And there you go. All right. Okay, so last row for the repeat, row 5. Going to be knitting the knits and purling the purls, but we are going to incorporate that decrease on the knit stitches, and that gives us that lovely sort of twisted cable appearance. So starting right in with 2 purls to begin with. Purl and purl. There we are. Yarn to the back. Knit the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then going to take that first of the 3 knit stitches and pass it up, over, and off. So scooting right in, being careful not to lose your other stitches. And there you go. Yarn to the front, purl 2, yarn to the back, knit 3, grab that first knit stitch and slip it over, yarn to the front, purl 2. Okay, yarn to the back, going to knit 3, 1, 2, and 3. Pass that first knit stitch up over and off. Sorry if my focus is funky. Yarn to the front and purl the last 2 stitches. And there you go. So let me get myself a little bit more situated here. So what we just did, that is the right side facing row. And I tell you, in a short amount of time, we've created a thing of beauty. So then, since we have created an equilibrium with our stitches, the following row, if you wanted to bind off, this would be the time to do it. I am going to put a link in the description box down below on how you can do what I call the super stretchy bind off. It is really, really quite easy. And actually, you know what? Let's do that now, shall we? Okay. Alrighty, so for the bind off, now this is just one suggestion as to how you can approach binding off for your project. This is just my preferred method. Going to knit the first 2 stitches as one would normally do, and then going in with the left needle through those 2 stitches, going to knit those together and off. There we go. And then knit the next stitch. And then again through the front, knit those 2 together. Knit the next stitch. Going in through the front loops, knit these 2 together. And the reason why I do this bind off more than any other is because it creates a looser, more stretchy bind off than you would normally get. And I have a tendency of binding off very tightly because this, to me, is the most anxious part of knitting, because obviously you don't want to mess it up. And so I get very tense. Some people, they will use a larger gauge of knitting needle when binding off. You know, me, I find that this method works for me. Do what works best for you. That's what I always say. And then I also say, you know, push boundaries, try new things. And then eventually you will find something that you're like, hey, I like this. I'm going to keep doing it this way. So yeah, you just do this with all of your stitches. You just knit one, and then go in through the front loop and knit them together. It's that easy. You know, I figured we only had, like, what, 14 stitches? You know, not a big deal. Let's just do it on camera. And this is the bind off that I used for my swatch. Now, it's not a ribbed bind off, albeit. However, I think it works just fine. Okay, just a few more to go, and then we can call it a day. And one more. Gotta be careful. It always wants to get away from you, that last one. And here we go. Okay, so it's at this point that you would cut your yarn, pull out the loop, and you are all set. So yeah, it creates, a nice and elastic bind off between the knitted cast on and the stretchy bind off. It's not bunched up and all taut at the top or bottom of the piece. And I think it looks rather nice. What do you think? So there you go. Alrighty, my dears, so that concludes today's tutorial on the Lacy mock cable stitch. Really hope that you liked it, and if you did, please give a little thumbs up button down below. You know that I appreciate your appreciation as always. Now, I know also I'm going to invariably get a lot of comments saying, that's really pretty, can you do that in crocheting? Or I don't knit, I would really like to, but I don't knit. Well, try it. I certainly, okay. It took me a long time to get to the ability of knitting that I have. It took a lot of practice. I have been knitting almost as long as I've been crocheting, okay? It takes work and time and practice, but above all, it requires you to let go of preconceived notions and your fear of inability. I believe in you guys. I do, yeah, because with time and practice and patience and effort, you can do this. At one point, did I think, would I ever be able to do this? Heck no. But you can do it if you keep at it, and I believe in you guys. So, with that being said, listen, thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, you know what to do, right? I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.